Hello, and welcome to another edition of AHL Insider Weekend Recap. I'm your host, Sean Perry, here to cover everything from attendance metrics, scores, media coverage news, and everything else in between that happened this week in the American Hockey League. Let's start with attendance. This week, the story of the week had to be the teams that are performing well under the league's average of 5,113 fans, performing much higher. The first and best example of this trend in my book was the Springfield Falcons, who hadn't gotten over 5,000 fans to a game since October, but scored 5,600 fans on Friday night. Now the game was actually a special game where they were honoring local servicemen on Hometown Heroes nights, wearing specialty jerseys and the like, but it was also a flat screen Friday, where one lucky fan left with a free HD TV, courtesy of local sponsor, Manny's Television and Appliances. To top it all off, the Falcons defeated the Connecticut Whale by a score of 2-0. Both goals were scored by former Whale member Tim Erickson. That makes 2 in a row against their division rivals, with last Sunday's beating in XL Center 10-2. A couple other teams that had been struggling for attendance that drew great crowds this weekend were the Peoria Rivermen and the Albany Devils. Last night, the Rivermen drew 6,641 fans for a hard-fought 5-3 loss to the Grand Rapids Griffins. Meanwhile, the Albany Devils defeated the Adirondack Phantoms by a final score of 2-1 in front of over 5,000 fans at the Time Union Center. Now, teams near the bottom of the league's attendance obviously weren't the only ones who had great metrics this weekend. One of the teams that led the way was the Houston Aeros. The Houston Aeros also broke their attendance average by over 2,000 fans on Friday night for Military Appreciation Night at the Toyota Center. The game was an exciting one too, which went all the way to a shootout with the Lake Erie Monsters goaltender Sammy Adocalio stopped all 4 of the Aeros shootout attempts. Now this was the first Saturday night game for the Aeros featuring their all-new in-arena video board, the largest in North America, so it's likely a few fans are still piling in to get a look at it. Another team that had a great weekend for attendance was the Abbotsford Heat, who drew over 14,000 fans in back-to-back sellouts at the Abbotsford Entertainment and Sports Center. Now, part of the reason attendance was so high this weekend in Abbotsford was because they were playing the Oklahoma City Barons, who feature such NHL stars as Justin Schultz, Jordan Eberle, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Taylor Hall. According to Michael Baldwin of The Province, there were fans from Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and everywhere in between, which is not a common sight at a Canadian hockey game outside of, say, the Olympics. The Rochester Americans have been one of the top teams in the league for attendance this season, and they continued that trend this weekend with a game that drew over 8,000 fans to Blue Cross Arena on Friday night. Now, the Americans lost that game 2-1 against the Adirondack Phantoms, but they bounced right back 24 hours later with a 5-2 victory over in-state rivals, the Syracuse Crunch. Over 6,000 fans were in attendance to witness the in-state rivalry game. The Syracuse Crunch still sit in the top seed in the Eastern Division. Now, any follower of the AHL worth his salt knows that the Hershey Bears are the best team for attendance in the league. They have been for many years and will likely be for a long time. And Friday night was no different, where 8,700 Bears fans witnessed a 2-1 loss to the St. John's IceCaps. This has been an ongoing trend with the Bears this season, who currently sit in last place in the East Division. Apparently, attendance doesn't translate into on-the-ice success, always. Nonetheless, as much of the Washington Capitals staff, including head coach Adam Oates, is with the team this year, it's likely that things will turn around in time. Now, as I said, most fans know that the Bears are the best team in the league for attendance. However, very few know who the last team to lead the league was, and that was the Manchester Monarchs in 2005-2006. This weekend, the Monarchs returned to form big time. The Manchester Monarchs drew over 15,000 fans to the Verizon Wireless Center in downtown Manchester this weekend. Friday night, they lost 5-2 to the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, but on Saturday night, they drew over 8,200 fans to witness a 3-0 defeat of the Providence Bruins. Now, the attendance for the Monarchs hasn't exactly been poor over the last few seasons, but this year might be a return to form. They happen to be the only team in North America with any players of last year's Stanley Cup champions, including the aptly named left winger, Dwight King. Finally, there was some big news in terms of media coverage this week, as the AHL signed a multi-year deal with digital sports video news agency Send2 News. Located in Victoria, Canada, Send2 News provides broadcast-quality sports highlights for over 1,000 newsrooms across North America and abroad. This should really help the league expand its media coverage portfolio in terms of outsourcing highlight packages to major news networks across North America. This is not the first time the league has worked with Send 2 News, who produced a lot of the highlights during the Calder Cup Championships last year, but it is the start of a major multi-year partnership. Now I, for one, am personally very excited to see where this partnership leads, and hope that it creates new awareness and fans of the league across North America and the world. Well, that's it for this weekend's edition of AHL Insider Weekend Recap. This has been Sean Perry reporting, and I hope to see you all again next week. Before then, let me just leave all you NHL starved hockey fans out there with one comforting thought. Now, it's important to remember that while these revenue negotiations go on, everyone, including League Commissioner Gary Bettman, is losing some serious money. Now, while this widening gyre of revenue share will likely be what brings these negotiations to a close sooner rather than later, for now, the NHL's losses are the AHL's gains. They're getting all the extra attention, they're increasing their media coverage, and the things that are changing now will likely be what helps the team continue to grow and expand in future seasons. But the most important thing to remember is that as long as there are fans willing to pack arenas in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Manchester, New Hampshire, and Springfield, Massachusetts, there will always be a league, there will always be hockey, and there will always be fights. This has been Sean Perry reporting.